am going to tell you about my London trip this week. It's been, I think, a couple weeks already since I got back. Time is going by so fast. But I wanted to make a video about it. I didn't take a ton of clips, but I think what I'm going to do is just tell you a little bit about the trip. And that way I can share a few fun clips from it. And then I will switch to overhead and I'll show you everything I made in my sketchbook when I was there. I also wanted to show you guys what I brought in terms of art supplies, just so you can get an idea if travel and painting is new for you. It's still somewhat new for me, but I would say I started bringing paints on trips like last year. So I've done it a few times and I'm getting better at it. Every time I go, I feel like I have a clearer idea of like what I need to bring, what I don't need to bring, what's worth it. So I'll start just with that and show you the art supplies that I brought. Okay, this is everything. So as you can see, that doesn't take up a huge amount of space in a bag. And the gist of it is that I have one bag for pencils and paintbrushes, and then I've got like a pen and a marker in here too. I didn't bring any of my more expensive brushes because I didn't want to ruin them, and usually those ones are the longer handled ones anyway, so they're difficult to fit. So I just brought like a few cheap brushes that I knew are good, but I wouldn't be upset if somehow they got ruined in travel. So yeah, that's what I brought in terms of like utensil. Is that called a utensil? Art utensils? Probably not. You know what I'm saying. And then I also have this. I don't think I actually did bring this on the trip. This is just what I typically bring all my pencils in. It's just not big enough for brushes. So I may or may not have brought both bags and I put my pencils in this one, brushes in the other, just to keep it more organized. I probably didn't need two bags though. One would have fit everything if it was that longer one that fits my brushes. This is what I've been bringing my paints around in. It's just this clear zipper bag, and I've got almost my whole set of Liquitex soft bodies in here. I don't use a couple of the colors, so I didn't worry about bringing them. But yeah, I love these. These are perfect for travel, and these are just my favorite paints to use in general right now is the Liquitex soft body. So just a small bag of them. And then my small Stay Wet Handy palette. So it's the Mastersons palette, and this thing travels so well. I just like don't go anywhere without it, I feel like, anymore. If you want to see a more comprehensive list of art supplies that I typically use, I recently created a Substack post where I've linked everything, I've got pictures, and it's not just travel stuff, it's just like my favorite go to art supplies for all things. So if that's interesting to you, I will link that below. Anyway, let's talk about the London trip. If you didn't watch my video where I explained why I was going, basically, my brother, who is an airline pilot, just invited me to meet up with him in London because he had like a week off. So, using his benefits, actually using my dad's benefits because he's a pilot as well, I was able to fly there standby, which is like you can get on a flight if there's empty seats and you don't have to pay, or it's like a small fee. And I was able to do that. So that's how I was able to do it so last minute. And yeah, I just went, I think it was 5 days, including the day that we got there, which we got there in the morning. So we did have like the whole day ahead of us. I had not been to London since I think it was 2019, 2018. I was probably 19 years old, which would have made it, wait, how old am I? I'm 27. I don't know. It had been since I was like 19 years old, whatever year that was. Okay. And I went with my sister, and we were only there for a short time as well. But we did a little trip in college where we went to London and Amsterdam. And the reason I really wanted to go there at that time was because I have such a deep love for the installation artists, Christo and Jean Claude. And at that time, they had put up this. I don't think Jean Claude was alive anymore, but Christo was. And they did their project. I forget what it was called now, but it was like this giant structure on the Serpentine in Hyde Park. And I'd always wanted to see one of their installations in real life. So that was a huge dream of mine. And I just have the fondest memories of being there and walking through Hyde Park and thinking, okay, where is this thing going to be? Like, how are we going to find it? And just walking through the trees and seeing through all that green, like this bright blue and red, and knowing like that's it. And we're just walking towards it. And it was this massive structure that they built out of these barrels floating on the Serpentine, and you could see like this the way that the sun reflected off of it, like the colors changed, turned gold as the sun was setting, and the swans are all swimming in front of it, and we just spent the longest time there admiring it. We took so many pictures. So that was my memory from my last trip in London, and I was really excited to be back there and to go back to Hyde Park especially. So that was one of my favorite things, was just being there, and I got to sit with my paints and paint the swans. And yeah, it was a gorgeous place. The flowers there, everything was in bloom. The trees all had like their fresh new baby leaves. So it was such a beautiful time to be there. So much fun being there with my brother, because the two of us, we love playing games. And so we just really enjoyed like going to pubs. There was one that was a shuffleboard place, and I had never played shuffleboard. It was like electric shuffleboard. I think it was called the Electric Shuffle. If anyone's interested in going, it was so much fun. So the shuffleboards are hooked up to screens. I'll include a few clips from that so you could just see what it was like. Okay, yeah. And then we went to a board game bar or restaurant at one point. And what else did we do? There was this day where we had been out like shopping around. We went to this vintage market, which was a lot of fun. And we were getting tired and wanted to just sit down for a while. So we found this park and I got to sit. And that was probably the longest time I spent painting, because it was this big, beautiful field with all these pigeons and just this vast amount of grass and a beautiful old house right across the way. So I spent some time painting that while my brother was reading. He finished the book The Secret History, which is a great book. If you don't know, you should know. It's really good. My sister is obsessed with that book, so she got it for him. She reads it every year in January. That's like her January book. And she's been trying to get him to read it, so he finally finished it. Yeah, I really enjoyed painting in that park. And then I don't remember what the place is called where we were at when we saw the string quartet, but we sat and listened to that. Well, we didn't sit, we stood. We stood and listened to that for such a long time. They were incredible. They were so good. So I'll include some clips of that too. And then possibly my favorite thing was going to the National Gallery. Actually, definitely my favorite thing. It was just incredible to be able to be in the presence of all of those amazing works of art. And for the first time ever, I actually brought my sketchbook in and was sketching from the paintings. It's something that I've always wanted to do, but I think I just felt like a little uncomfortable. I didn't want to like be in anybody's way standing in front of the same piece for too long, and I didn't want to be looked at or like people looking over my shoulder to see what I'm drawing. But this time I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter. I really want to do it. So I brought my sketchbook in. I had my earbuds in. I think that that really made a difference, because it kind of made me feel like I was alone in there. Even though it was a really busy day, there were people everywhere. I was able to just like be with the paintings and listening to the music and sketching. It just was so fun. And I've always loved museums, but I think that was the first time I have ever wandered around a museum like alone, because my brother and I just kind of parted ways when we got in there and spent quite a while just kind of wandering on our own. And that place is really like a maze. It's big, and the rooms, I don't know if they're not like labeled, but I never knew what room I was in, which was kind of exciting though, because every time I'd like turn around to bend, I had no idea what to expect, and it would be something totally different from what I had been looking at before. Some of my favorite pieces were one that I shared about in the weekly digest post that I put up on Substack after returning home, which was, I think it was called Day on the Beach or something, but it was a Degas painting that really surprised me because I've always loved Degas, but like not a lot. You know, the ballerinas are cool, but I've never been obsessed with them. This painting really like changed my perspective on Degas and made me realize that he paints in so many different um I don't know if I would say different styles altogether, but this painting in particular kind of reminded me of collage. It was very like innovative and really captivating. I loved how he combined 2D with 3D, and it was just stunning. Um there were more paintings that like really caught my attention, and I think I'll talk to you about them more when I show you my sketchbook. But yeah, going through the National Gallery was fantastic, and I would love to go back. I did want to see a um an Edouard Vuillard painting, because I mean, if you like have been watching my videos, you know that's my favorite artist. And they do have at least one, I think they have multiple of his works in their collection, but they weren't on display. I was so mad. Like, what? In the gift shop, they sold a poster of his work, but they didn't have his work on display. So that was a bummer, but whatever. Um, yeah, I think that was everything that I wanted to share with you guys just about the trip. And now I'll switch to overhead and I will show you what I made in my sketchbook when I was there. Okay, so this was the first thing that I drew there. This was from a painting on the hotel room wall. This is kind of the most like what it looked like. And then I just painted, or not painted, I drew that guy again and then again and again. And every time I drew him, it just became looser and more like, um, less like the original. And I like this drawing. This was fun. I remember I drew this like laying down on my back because I was so tired. I was just like laying on the hotel bed and looking at the painting on the wall. This I drew in a pub that first day also. Yeah, it was fun to just like pull out my sketchbook right away and do this little pen drawing while sitting there drinking our pints. Okay, this was from a pub that was right underneath Tower Bridge. That's the area where we were staying. So the pub was under the bridge, and then we were sitting out on the patio, and this was the view if you looked up from the table we were sitting at. So we were super close to the bridge and had this great view of it. So I did a little pencil drawing with my water soluble pencil, and then I added paint later, I think, at the hotel room. This was at Hyde Park looking at the swans. I also used my water soluble pencil for this one, which is quite nice because, you know, it's a paint or it's a drawing of water. So having the watery shadows, I think is really pretty. I was trying to capture the way the swans were moving, like that, you know, how they kind of like itch themselves and like um mess with their wings. Okay, this was that day when I got to actually spend a decent amount of time at this one spot painting this. It was called Weaver's Fields. And yeah, this was just such a beautiful day. I really enjoyed making this. I think I would have probably added even more color and whatnot if I had been home, but working just with what I had and with the time I had, I really like this painting. I think it came out nice, and it really captures like the mood of the weather and everything from that moment. Okay, this was, I also had all my paints out sitting on a bench in Hyde Park looking at the swans. And I really like certain aspects of this, I really like a lot. Like, I think the swans here And this swan over here, I think they turned out really nice. I left them really simple intentionally because I just quite liked that. It's really an unfinished spread just because I would have come in and done a lot more to the water, but since that was the time that I had, I decided to just kind of leave it and not go back in and finish it because, I mean, it is what it is. I captured that while sitting there, and I felt like that's kind of special, and I didn't want to alter it afterward. Yeah, for this, I used all acrylics, and then this is marker though. I have this one like chartreuse colored marker that I use for everything. Like, I'm not really a marker person, but I have this one marker and I always bring it with me everywhere. This was more from that same spot. So I really like this super loose pared down landscape, just focusing on this one area from the view across the Serpentine. And then the swan drawing, I think, also turned out really lovely. This dry brush technique is so interesting to me. Every time I make a little drawing with a mostly dry paintbrush, I just fall in love with the detail and the texture of those marks. All right, this was in Kensington Gardens. So, same basic area, but we walked to get to the Kensington Gardens part of the park. And this was just a quick landscape. We were across from like where they have all those fountains and whatever this structure is, I'm not sure. So, it was a really pretty area. And then I drew or painted this horse chestnut, which I didn't know was called that. I had to look it up. It's these massive trees with these flowers that kind of come up like in this cone shape, which we don't have that here in California, I don't think. So that was super interesting to me and really beautiful. All right, this was from the National Gallery. So I did this based off of a Delacroix painting. I think this was a painting of a little boy. What I did was I would just stand in front of a painting and admire it for a while. And then if I was inspired by the content of it enough to want to sketch it, I would do so very, very loosely. So, as you can see, I mean, this doesn't actually look like the Delacroix painting in any way, but I was inspired by the image of the little boy and then just did like a super abstracted little drawing. And then same with these. I didn't label these ones, but these are all just portraits that really grabbed my attention. I love the details of like buttons and ruffly collars, curly hair. Like those are things that I can just absolutely get lost in. Whatever this maybe a military badge is, like the star on his lapel. I love details like that. And then the ornate frames as well. I love doodling and drawing ornate frames. This was more of that. So Jacques Louis David, this painting was really gorgeous. Again, with that ruffly collar and the curly hair, I just really can like have so much fun with shapes like that. And I've always had a thing for portraits with more than one subject. So specifically when there's two subjects in one portrait, I'm very interested in those compositions. So having the mother and child, and then this was actually just a portrait of one dude, but there was a bust in the background, so like a statue. And that kind of has that same effect where even though there's technically one subject, you feel like the presence of this other figure. So yeah, I also quite liked that one. This one's, I can hardly read my writing. Pompeo, Girolamo Battoni, I don't know, is that Italian? 1759. All right, these were from Diego Velasquez paintings. I've always known that I liked Velasquez, but I think more than ever this time I was very amazed by his work. This one in particular, like I stood in front of forever. And again, like these are just really loose kind of sketches. They're not really representative of exactly what the composition of the painting looks like, especially this one. I think for this, I just kind of took bits of a painting and put them in there. But I do remember this was a painting of Mary and Martha. So the way he depicts it is that Jesus is in the background and Mary is at his feet. And then Martha is here in the foreground and she's like working on the food and everything. And this is actually from a verse that I recently wrote down and I put up on my wall. and it's from Luke 10. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's something along the lines of um, like Martha is upset because Mary is just sitting at his feet and she's not doing anything right. Like she's just absolutely devoted to him, just sitting at his feet, just listening to every word he says. And Martha is kind of annoyed because she's doing all the work. And Jesus, and like basically she tells Jesus, like, what the heck? Like, why? Why is she doing that? And like tell her to stop. And Jesus says, you're anxious and worried about many things, but one thing is necessary. And he says, like, Mary has chosen the good portion that will not be taken away from her. I think that's what it is. So anyway, that was a verse, like a passage that I had recently written down, and then seeing that painting was really cool. This was from, I think this was one painting of this dude 3 times, which is kind of like a mugshot. Or it may have been 3 paintings of the same guy. I don't remember. But I really enjoyed this painting, and I love a good like profile. I obviously did not stay consistent with the size because I drew him really small here and then got bigger. But yeah, this was a pencil sketch. I added the paint later. This was a color study that I did back at the hotel afterward. It was based on a Degas painting, which I didn't end up finishing. So I think this was me trying to grab all of the colors that I could detect from the Degas painting. And I'll put the painting up on the screen. Then I was going to translate it and to just try to like approximatively, is that a word? Put the colors where they belonged and try to like represent the painting. But I ended up not being able to finish it, which is fine. I just really liked this color scheme, and I'm happy that I did this because I think I will work from this. Like, I will reference this in my own paintings because this is a very like pleasing color scheme and involves a lot of shades that I wouldn't normally reach for, I think, and they all work together so well. I sliced my thumb with a bread knife, by the way. That's this. I don't have any normal band-aids. Okay, this was on the plane on the way home. So I actually got first class on the way home, which is like absolutely insane. There was just enough open seats, and my dad listed me for first class, and I got on. It was the craziest thing. So luxurious, honestly. I never expected to fly first class. So I pulled out my Edouard Vuillard book, which I had a chance to read quite a bit of on the trip, and I was just drawing from different photographs that were included in that book. And then here, I decided to do the fun exercise of like just trying to draw something that I had no idea how to draw or what it looked like and couldn't look at a reference myself. Um, this is me, what I thought I looked like flying first class. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun. I think it's important to do little exercises like this for me a lot of time just to remember to keep it fun and to not take myself too seriously, and sometimes like just draw something without having any idea how to make it look realistic because there's no reference material, and just like draw from your head and see what happens. Like, as you can see, really bougie. Tablecloth, glassware, real silverware. It's so fancy. Okay, so this was a film that I watched on the flight, and I really enjoyed it. I shared about this in my Substack post. It's the movie A Real Pain, which recently won, I think, multiple Oscars. It was by Jesse Eisenberg. I don't know if he wrote it. I feel like he wrote it and also directed it and also starred in it. And I love this movie a lot. And then after I finished it, I started it again just so that I could like draw from some of the characters. So these are the two main characters. They're cousins, and they go on a trip to Poland to. It's after their grandma passes, and so she leaves them some money to go and like discover Poland and where she lived when she was over there. It's a really beautiful story. It's funny and also sad and also heavy, and it's like everything that you could want in one movie. This was more from that film. So Jesse Eisenberg, this was another character. This is from a scene when they're in front of the like Auschwitz, I think, in front of the camps. And this was from a scene when the cousins are on the rooftop smoking, and he's wearing this like funny hat that he got at a touristy shop. Okay, so that's everything I made on the trip. I guess I can talk about this as well because I am doing a project for my friends. I'm painting their house. They run a restaurant out of their house. It's incredible, like fine dining, and they're going to be moving to a new location. So they're hiring me to paint their house so that they have a painting of the original house and the new one. So this was from a day when I went out there and I had this whole setup in front of their house at the end of the walkway. And oh my gosh, you guys can't recommend enough painting for chefs because if they're your friends, especially, they'll bring you out a cocktail and a bowl of popcorn and all of anything you could want. I was just like being waited on as I was doing these color studies and like sketches of the house. So I'll keep sharing about this project as I work on it because this is going to be a bigger painting on wood panel. This was from a photograph that I took at Hyde Park. These flowers were insane, and there were black tulips in there, which I think there's like some symbolism around the black tulip. I know there's a book called The Black Tulip by Dumas, like the guy who wrote The Count of Monte Cristo. So I think I'm going to read that book this year. I don't know the story behind the black tulip, but I know that I had never seen one. So seeing those was really, really cool. They're more like burgundy, but they're so dark that they do appear black. This was one of the paintings that captivated me the most in the National Gallery. It was St. Margaret of Antioch by Francisco de Zurbarán, 1631. This woman was just so cool. Like her hat, she's holding a shepherd's staff. There's this dragon, which in the original painting, and I'll put it up right here, on the original painting, the background is really dark, so you don't notice the dragon right away. And then when you do, you're like, what? And like her clothing is just so gorgeous. With I don't know if this is like over her arm, probably like shepherdess garments or something, but also very fancy. So I'm not totally sure. But it was just extremely captivating. The colors, the look on her face. And then I was reading the, like the plaque next to it and about like a little bit about the background of Saint Margaret and something crazy like I think she's the patron saint of childbirth and something like she burst out of the womb of a dragon and that's why she's pictured here. I don't know. I will correct that if I'm wrong. I was wrong. I don't know if she's the patron saint of childbirth. Okay, Margaret of Antioch is the patroness of pregnant women, servant maids, kidney sufferers, and against diabolical infestations. Okay, but the story about the dragon is that, like, she was swallowed by a dragon and she got out. She, like, escaped because she irritated the dragon's stomach with the cross that she was holding. That's different from what I said, so I just thought I'd clarify. But that's what I seem to remember. Okay, this is based on a Dutch still life. Dutch still life is amazing. I think we all know that. It's just like mind blowing how they render the tiniest details, the droplets of water, the little insects, the snails, like everything in a Dutch still life is just like you can get as close up to it as you want and it still looks real, like you could reach out and touch it. So this is I don't know anything about how to pronounce Dutch things, but Jan David Stahim, I don't know. Um, this painting was really captivating also. I love the composition of it, that vertical and like things are spilling out. And yeah, I was very much captivated by that. Okay, that was everything. Hopefully, it was cool to see like a realistic travel sketchbook because I didn't make that much. And I think that's so normal. Unless you're going on a trip specifically for painting, like that's your intention. If you're able to get any sketches in or any painting in, I think that's a win. And this trip definitely wasn't about painting. So the fact that I was able to create that much, I was really happy with. And yeah, I think it helps you to experience things in a deeper way too. It's not only about like, oh, what can you make? Or like, how can you capture it? I think if there's any stress around painting or sketching when you're traveling, then it's probably not worth it because it's not about that. It shouldn't be something that stresses you out. It should be something that helps you to experience the new things that you're discovering on a deeper level and not to like get in the way of that. One thing that I really have been enjoying lately is just appreciating art and like looking at paintings again. I think it's something that if you went to art school or, just took art history class, then you know what it's like to do that and to analyze paintings and really spend time on them. But when we graduate or when we're not in that setting anymore, it can be so easy to just forget that or yeah, to kind of lose that love and that interest that we have, that depth of interest for other people's work. And if you're an artist too, I think sometimes when we look at other people's paintings, it automatically makes us think of our own, which isn't always a bad thing, but we might just be so like obsessed with our own work that we forget to also just look at all kinds of different art, to appreciate it, to be inspired by it, to glean from it and learn from it. So if you're also craving more of that, as I have been, I'm gonna plug my Substack again, just because in my weekly posts I have been sharing a painting every week that I really enjoy, and I'll just share like nothing super long, no like in-depth analysis of it or anything, just why I like it and like a few things about it. And one of the reasons why I want to do that is just to put art and like the art that I love on a platform that's a little slower paced, which I think YouTube is, and I think Substack is too. It kind of breaks my heart the amount of just like masterpieces, whether it's like people posting their work or photos of work from history that just gets scrolled past so fast, and we look at it for like 2 seconds and we double tap it and we scroll past it. And yeah, I think it's cool to just pause and just look at paintings again. Um, but I'm not going to say it's always easy. I think I struggle with a short attention span just as much as anybody. And so that's why I'm trying to be really intentional about it. Anyway, follow me on Substack if you're interested in that and also other things that I've been sharing. If you're interested in my art supplies, click that link as well. And if you have any questions or any comments, yeah, leave them below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.